I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make donut muffins, and this is what they look like. These muffins will remind you of a cake donut. Their texture is wonderfully tender, and they have the subtle flavor of nutmeg, and we're going to dip the tops in a cinnamon sugar. But the great thing is, we're not going to deep fry these, we're going to bake them. So, the first thing that you will need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a 12-cup muffin pan. You can line your muffin cups with paper liners, but for these, I really just like to butter the inside, or you could spray them with one of those non-stick sprays. So what I've done is just melt a little bit of butter, and then I'm just using a pastry brush to brush the insides, like so. And I've already done the other ones. So for the batter, this is really like a cake batter or a cupcake batter. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or really you could use a hand mixer to make this batter. The first thing you will need is a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. I like to use unsalted butter. I like the flavor, and I like to control the salt in the recipe, but if you have a favorite salted butter, go ahead and use that. Just leave out the salt in the recipe. Now have your butter at room temperature. Put that in there, and then I'm just going to beat it on medium speed just until it's nice and smooth. Okay. And as always, when you're making a batter, periodically stop, scrape down the bottom and the sides of your bowl, because you want to make sure everything gets mixed together, and it tends to like clump on the bottom of your bowl. Don't want that. So next, you will need 3/4 of a cup, which is 150 grams of granulated white sugar. And then I'm going to flavor them all with 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. So now, this is like a cake batter. So I'm going to beat this on medium-high speed for a couple minutes. I want to get a little bit of air, and that'll make them very light and fluffy and tender. So good. So, a couple minutes. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. Kind of lightens in color, nice and fluffy. So, scrape that down. And now, I'm going to add 2 large eggs, and have your eggs at room temperature. I'm going to add them one at a time, beat one in and then the other. If you want to weigh your eggs, that would be 100 grams out of the shell. So, just going to put one in, beat that in, and then add the second one. Okay, that looks good. So now, in a separate bowl for our dry ingredients, I have 2 cups, which is 260 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. To that, I'm adding 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. Again, if you use the salted butter, just leave out that salt. And I love to flavor like a cake donut, so my donut muffins, with freshly grated nutmeg. That's the flavor. When I think of a cake donut, I think of nutmeg. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. Now, this is a nutmeg. There. And you can buy them in the spice section of your grocery store. And to grate them, you can use a box grater on the fine side, or I got this microplane. And then I'll do it this way. You just grate it, like so. Now, I like about 1 teaspoon and kind of pack it in there. You can vary that depending on, if you like If you really like a strong nutmeg flavor, you can add a little more, maybe 1¼ teaspoons. Conversely, if you want just a very subtle, then add maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. So I'm just going to mix that together. Now I'm going to add the flour in 3 additions, and I'm going to alternate that with 3/4 of a cup of milk, which is 180 milliliters, 180 grams, and have your milk at room temperature. You can use like a full fat that will give you a richer tasting muffin. I'm actually using a 2% reduced fat, so you can decide what you want to use, what you have in the house. So I'm going to add, maybe about 1/3 of my flour. Just going to eyeball that. Beat that in. Have your mixer on low speed because you don't want that coming up in your face. Then I'm going to add about, half of the milk. Okay. More of my flour. Rest of my milk. Finish off with our flour. Okay. Now you may ask, why don't I just dump all of the flour in? Because if I did that, I'd have to run my mixer a lot longer to mix all of that flour into my batter at once. And that will make our muffins a little tougher in tasting. So, once you put the flour in, you don't want to over mix your batter. So that's why I do it back and forth, back and forth. Okay. So there is a little bit of flour. Let's do that. Just stir that in. Okay, so now we're going to put, try to put the same amount of batter in each muffin cup. You can use 2 spoons, or I'm using an ice cream scoop. The important thing is to fill them the same amount so that they all bake in the same length of time. Okay, and our last one, let's put right over here. And then sometimes if I don't put it in perfectly, I just take a spoon and even that out. Good enough. Okay, so now everyone's oven can be a little different. Sometimes your oven runs a little hot, a little cool. I'm going to say about 16 minutes, 17, somewhere in there. So I would check at least at the 15-minute mark because you don't want to overbake them because then they'll be dry. We don't want our muffins to be dry. So they will rise. And then when you take a toothpick, insert it into the center. I normally insert it into the ones on this row, right in the middle. And you want that to come out clean. I do like to rotate my pan, front to back about halfway through baking just to even everything out because usually you have some hot spots. So I'm going to say, let's just say 16 to 18 minutes. Okay, so our donut muffins are done. See, nice rise to them. Toothpick inserted into the center, came out just clean. So put your pan on a wire rack. I'm going to let them cool just a couple minutes because we want to put the cinnamon sugar while they're still warm, but I don't want to burn myself. So I'll give them a couple minutes. So now I'm using this silicone offset spatula to get my donut muffins out of the pan. They're still really hot. Okay, so now you will need 3 tablespoons, that's 42 grams of melted butter. And then you will need in a small bowl, 1/4 cup, 50 grams of granulated white sugar. And to that, I'm adding 2 teaspoons, 5 grams of ground cinnamon. You know, the amount of cinnamon you add to the sugar is really up to you. My perfect amount is 2 teaspoons. You can use more or less of that. Hey. So now, what I do, this is my little production line, I take a pastry brush. Now some people just like to dip the tops of the muffins in the melted butter. I just use a pastry brush. And I only do the tops. Some people like to do the sides. If you want the whole thing, by all means do that. So just gonna, and we put the butter so that then the sugar will stick to the tops of the muffins. Now you could sprinkle over the top, but I find that makes a mess of my counter, so you'd want to do it over a plate or something. So I've found it's better to just dip, and then if I miss some spots, I just take a spoon and do that, and kind of get the excess off, and there we have our donut muffin. And you just carry on and do the rest. I won't bore you with that, but we will taste it. So, you know, these are good freshly made, but they're also good if you store them overnight or even a couple days, because then that kind of butter and the cinnamon sugar kind of softens everything. Either way, but see, inside, very cake-like. Still really warm. Really good. It's just like when you have them out of a deep fryer, right? I like the cinnamon sugar. Cake donuts or donut muffins, to me, I like the cinnamon sugar. Adds a nice flavor. And then you have the actual muffin. You know, to me, 1 teaspoon of the freshly grated nutmeg is just about right for me. And then you've got, they're sweet. They're buttery, very soft and tender, kind of the perfect muffin. You know, any time of the day. Okay, maybe that's not the most healthy breakfast, but you could have some fruit and yogurt with that. Or, you know, a nice snack with a cup of coffee. Really good any time of the day. And they store pretty well, 3-4 days, or you can freeze them. Try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of JoyaBaking.com.